Hey, book lovers. Welcome to While I Read. I'm Katie, and today I'm going to tell you about my favorite action packed thrillers. These are books that I just think of as an adrenaline rush from beginning to end. Books that I feel like the action just never stops and that kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time that I was reading them. As I was researching this episode, I found that a lot of the books that are considered to be action packed are in like the Jack Reacher series by Lee Childs or the Jack Ryan series by Tom Clancy. I've never read any of those books. My dad read books in those series and liked them, but I never have read any. A lot of mine feature female heroes or are written by female authors. Not all of them, though. So let's go ahead and get started. All of the books that I talk about today will be linked in the description box. If you're interested, you can click the link to purchase that book, and I'll get a small percentage of the proceeds at no extra cost to you. That's just a way that you can support my channel if you're interested in any of these books. So let's go ahead and get started. The first book that I'll tell you about is The Spy Coast by Tess Gerritsen. This is the first in the Martini Club series. A lot of these books that I'll tell you about today are part of series, not all of them. Some of them are standalone. This book, The Spy Coast, is about a woman named Maggie Bird. She has a quiet life in a small town in Maine. She raises chickens. She just is in her 60s. But she does have a secret. She is a retired CIA agent. There are actually other retired CIA agents living in this small town. They all know each other and they kind of think of themselves as the Martini Club because they meet for martinis and they're all just kind of living this quiet life in Maine. But then a dead body turns up in Maggie's yard. She realizes that this has to do with a case from her CIA days. So she starts trying to figure out what's going on with the help of the other retired CIA agents living in her town. So we have the action that's taking place now, which is very exciting. We also go back in time to Maggie's past in the CIA. It features her traveling all over the globe, Bangkok, Istanbul, London, Malta, and it is just action packed. I was on my edge of the seat for this whole book. I loved the character of Maggie and I love the retired spies. There's also a police chief named Joe Thibodeau who knows there's something unusual about Maggie and her friends, and she's trying to solve this case of what happened, why this woman was murdered in Maggie's yard as well, and she's figuring out that there's more to this than meets the eye. This was just such an exciting book, and it featured travel to so many exotic places. Definitely action packed. Next, I'll tell you about Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Rayburn. This one is actually kind of similar to The Spy Coast. I think of them kind of like if I think of one, I think about the other, but they actually are very different books. So Killers of a Certain Age is about four women who were assassins. They worked for this clandestine agency called the Museum, and they would perform high profile assassinations. That what they say is they always killed bad guys. It was always, they never targeted anybody who was a good guy. It was always a bad guy. So now they are in their 60s and they're sort of being forced to retire by the museum, but the museum is sending them on an all expenses paid cruise. So, they're on this cruise together. They're trying to relax, even though that's not in their nature. But then some things start happening that make it very obvious that someone is trying to kill them, and they quickly figured out that it is the museum itself that's trying to kill them. So they have to figure out Why is the museum trying to kill them? What do they know that the museum doesn't want them to know? Or what case does this relate to? They also have to keep themselves alive. It is such an exciting book. Again, they travel all over the world. Just like in The Spy Coast, we go back into the past and we see women, or we see missions that these women completed together, like going back to the 1970s when they first started. It's a really fun book. It's really funny. It has a lot of just really funny but also poignant humor about aging. So I laughed a lot as I was reading this book, but I was also really compelled to keep reading it because of the constant action and the exotic locations. The next high octane thriller that I'll tell you about is Alias Emma by Ava Glass. This is about a woman named Emma Makepeace, which of course is an alias. She works for a London agency that spies on the Russians. So she has just graduated from her training program and she has gotten her very first major assignment. There is this young Russian doctor whose parents are Russian dissidents, and the Russians have killed his parents and now they're after him. So Emma's job is to get him across London into the protective custody of her agency. But she has to do it without being seen by the Russians. And the problem is that the Russians have hacked London's CCTV cameras, the Ring of Steel. So she has to get him across London without the Russians seeing them on camera. So, of course, that's almost an impossible task. It's made harder by the fact that this doctor does not want to go with her. He does not believe there's a need to go into protective custody. So this is just such a fun, exciting book. It has all of these locations in London that are familiar and then some that are not familiar. She ends up like in this underground river. It's just amazing. I love this book. I love the relationship between Emma and the doctor that she's trying to help. Like at first, they really don't like each other that much. He doesn't want her to help him. She knows she has to get him into custody, but then they start kind of grudgingly learning to respect each other. There's a little bit of romantic tension there too. It was one of my favorite books that I read, I believe in 2023. There are actually two more books in the Alias Emma series now. This first one was a 5-star read for me. The next adrenaline-fueled thriller that I'll tell you about is 0 Days by Ruth Ware. This is my favorite Ruth Ware book. It's a lot different from most of Ruth Ware's other books. They generally have like sort of a gothic, creepy, mysterious kind of feel to them. This one is totally different. This one is just an action-packed thriller. It's about a woman named Jack. She's married to Gabe. Together, they are penetration specialists, which means that they work for companies to try to figure out like the security flaws in the company. And that could be both like a physical security flaw that makes it easy to physically break into this place, or it could be like some kind of technology problem where hackers could get in. So at the beginning of the book, they're doing what should be a routine job. Jack is physically breaking into this building while her husband is at home handling the technological side of things. But then it ends up going wrong. Jack ends up getting caught. And when she goes back home, finally, to her husband, she finds him dead in their apartment. He has been murdered. So she's very upset by this, but then she very quickly becomes the police's main suspect in his murder. So she has to go on the run, trying to stay out of police custody and also trying to find her husband's real killer. So she has to look into what in their lives could have caused someone to murder her husband. This is just so exciting as we follow her as she's on the run. She's constantly, just barely making it ahead of the police. She's looking into these like kind of questionable contacts that she and her husband had, just trying to figure out who was responsible for the murder. She's also, contacting some old friends of theirs, but maybe these friends are not really who she believes that they are. So this book was so exciting. It kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time. This is the first book in my list so far that is a standalone thriller, and it is such a good one. Next, I'll tell you about The Second Stranger by Martin Griffin. This book is about a woman named Remy. She works at a hotel in the Scottish Highlands. She is on the last night of her shift there. She's going to be leaving, and she's excited about being done working at this hotel. But then a storm hits. It's Storm Ezra. It's a winter storm that's bringing all kinds of snow and terrible conditions. And someone knocks at the door of the hotel. He is a law enforcement officer named Don Gaines. He says he was transporting a prisoner from the nearby prison and had a terrible accident. The prisoner has escaped, and he needs to get into the hotel to try to contact some other people and also to protect Remy and the other hotel guest. He shows her his ID, so she lets him in, and she's just trying to make it through the rest of the night when there is another knock at the door. It is a police officer who says he is Don Gaines and he has had a terrible accident and a prisoner has escaped. He also shows her ID to prove who he is. So Remy has to figure out which one of these men is lying. Obviously, one of them is the real police officer and the other one is the escaped prisoner. But which one is which? How is Remy going to keep herself safe? How is she going to keep the hotel guests safe? Could the hotel guest have something to do with what's going on? So this is another non-stop thriller. The winter storm and isolated aspect of it made it even better for me because I love those tropes in a thriller. Remy ends up fighting against nature just as much as she's fighting against the actual human antagonist in this. And as the reader, you are constantly guessing along with Remy who the actual bad guy in this scenario is. Such a good read. The next action-packed thriller that I'll tell you about is on the cozier side, the lighter side, but still adrenaline fueled, and that is We Solve Murders by Richard Osman. This is about a woman named Amy Wheeler and her father-in-law, Steve Wheeler. So Amy is a bodyguard and she is currently working for this very rich author on an island off the coast of South Carolina when a body turns up, and then there are like bags of money. Somebody comes who is trying to kill Rosie, the author, or possibly Amy, or possibly both. Meanwhile, Amy's father-in-law, Steve, is living in this small village in England. He is a widower. He is still grieving for his wife, Debbie. He has a cat named Trouble. He has friends who he talks with in the village. He has, his routines, his weekly pub quiz, his lunches. He just has a very routine life. And he's happy with that. He's a retired police officer. He has no desire to do, anything exciting ever again. But he is a private investigator, but the things that he investigates are just sort of petty type things. But Amy ends up needing his help. And so reluctantly, he ends up helping her. So they end up traveling the globe trying to figure out who is this person who is trying to kill Amy or the author that she's helping. How are they involved in Amy's past? I think they go to Hawaii. It's some tropical island. Then they also end up back in England. There is a villain in this book who gets ChatGPT to write his emails in the style of an elderly British gentleman. It's just hilarious, but it's also full of action. I really loved this book. The next riveting, page turning, action packed thriller I'll tell you about is Look in the Mirror by Catherine Steadman. This was actually my favorite book of 2024. So, this book has two main characters. One is Nina. She is a professor in England. Her father has just died. He was also a professor, like an academic, but she finds out that he has this house in the British Virgin Islands that is just this very luxurious house. She goes out to the British Virgin Islands to see it. It's all glass and marble. She's inherited it now, but she just doesn't understand how this could be the case. How could her father have afforded this, and why would he keep it a secret from her? Meanwhile, our other main character is Maria. She is a medical student who is paying for her medical school by working as a nanny for rich families. So she arrives at this very luxurious house to find that the family that she is supposed to be working for is not there. But they've left instructions for her to make herself at home. She can take advantage of the pool and, the other luxuries in the house. But her instructions say that there is a locked door to the basement, that under no circumstances is she to go in that locked door. So that's the premise for both of these characters. So in alternating chapters, we follow these characters and what they do and how their stories intersect. So I'll just say that you will not believe what is behind that locked door for Maria. In Nina's case, you will not believe what she finds out about this house that she has inherited from her father. The surprises in this book, the twists were just so shocking to me. It creeped me out. It made me scared at certain points, but I could never stop reading because the action never stopped. Both of these women, Nina and Maria, were such fighters, such fun characters to read about. I really enjoyed this book. The next action-packed thriller that I'll tell you about is The Flight Attendant by Chris Bajalian. So this one came out several years ago in 2018. I've seen that other people describe this as more of like a slow burn psychological thriller, but when I think back on this book, I think of it as being action-packed. I know it was one that I couldn't put down. So it's about a flight attendant named Cassandra Cassie. So she likes her job. She likes the adventure and the travel. She also just has like some things in her past that have made her she has some problems. So she drinks a lot. Sometimes she blacks out when she's drunk. She wakes up in this hotel room in Dubai, and she can kind of remember that there was this man that she had a one-night stand with. And then she looks, and the man is in the hotel room with her, and he is dead. It is obvious that he has been murdered. So she's terrified. She is afraid to go to the authorities because she is this single woman alone in a foreign country. So she just basically gets out of the hotel room. She goes back and gets on the flight with the other flight attendants. She does a first class flight to Paris. She ends up back in New York where FBI agents meet her and start asking her questions, and we just go from there. This book is nonstop action, nonstop travel for her because she is a flight attendant. So maybe that's part of the reason I found this book so exciting, because she's constantly just going all around the world to all of these exotic locations. So she's trying to figure out who is this man that she had the one night stand with who was killed. She's a little bit of an unreliable narrator because she has her blackouts, and so she starts thinking, did I actually kill this man and I don't remember it? Or is there someone else who killed him and are they after her now? This was a very exciting book. I know it was a series, I think on Netflix maybe, or maybe Max. I never watched it, but I would like to, but I definitely recommend the book. Next, I'll tell you about Every Vow You Break by Peter Swanson. This book is about a woman named Abigail. She is about to marry this tech billionaire named Bruce. On her bachelorette weekend, she has a one night stand with this man. They don't even give each other their real names. So the next day, she thinks about what she's done. She feels really guilty about it, and she knows that if Bruce finds out, it could ruin their relationship. So she makes the decision not to tell Bruce about this one night stand. So they have their beautiful, lavish wedding, and they go to their honeymoon on this luxurious island off the coast of Maine. But when they get to this island, everything is beautiful. They're staying in this cabin and they have these, wine-filled dinners, and everyone there is rich. And so she's wanting to relax. But then she discovers that the man she had the one night stand with is there on the island with them. This man approaches her and he tells her that he's been thinking about her and he's decided that they are meant to be together. And so he's there to basically get her away from Bruce. So this is basically a nightmare scenario for her. She can't tell Bruce about what's going on without letting him know that she cheated on him, but she's also in this possibly dangerous situation with this stalkerish man who's here on this island. Then some other strange things happen on the island. This woman that she's met there, Abigail sees her like running through the trees in a panic one night, but when she tries to tell other people, they sort of brush off her concerns. That's really all that I can tell you, but I will say that after they get to the island and Abigail sees the guy she had the one night stand with, things just take off and it's just nonstop action until the end of the book. Abigail, pretty much all the characters in this book they make some pretty morally questionable or, obviously morally wrong decisions. The end of it, or the twist, is pretty implausible, but I didn't care. I was just along for the ride, enjoying this action-packed book. The last fast-paced action-packed thriller I'll tell you about is The Last Word by Taylor Adams. This book is about a woman named Emma who is house-sitting at this rain-drenched Washington coast home. She is on her own except for her dog, who is a great character in the book. Emma has some personal issues going on in her life. She's doing a lot of reading while she's there at this house. She doesn't really have a lot of contact with other people. She has an elderly neighbor and they'll hold signs up to the windows to communicate with each other. And she is also in contact with the owner of the house just by text. So Emma reads this book and it's just terrible. It's a terrible horror novel. She leaves a 1-star review on Amazon. Well, the author of the book comments on her review and tells her she needs to take it down. So she argues back and forth with this author, and eventually the author threatens her. Well, so Emma at first thinks nothing of it, but then she starts to suspect that this author may actually know where she lives, and the author may actually be coming to her house and doing some pretty scary things there. So she's trying to figure out, what is going on? Is it possible that this could actually be happening? This book kept me riveted the whole time. It was a little scary. Like, you don't need to read it if you're in the house by yourself. Maybe even if there are other people in the house, you don't need to read it after dark, because it was on the edge of what I would find too scary. There's a little gore in it too, but I just enjoyed it so much. I love the premise of it, this isolated home, this woman who, is what she thinks is going on. Is this really going on? It also has some really funny parts to it as well. So this was definitely a fun, action-packed read. So that's it for my action-packed thrillers. Have you read any of these books, or do you have any that you would recommend to me as great action-packed thrillers? Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please subscribe to my channel where I provide book reviews and recommendations mainly in the mystery and thriller genre. Now, you go exercise while I read.